So I'm going to present quickly two models which we want to bring to this project. As you already said, it's the WISEE industry model on European level and the global steel model. So as a background, we call it the EDM, which stands for Energy Demand Model broadly. And this is a model family which has been developed at Wuppertal Institute over the last 10 to 15 years. You can see the model family in the figure below. So it's 8 different models currently, and they operate on different industrial subsectors, which are the bubbles on top. And below those sectors, there might be different processes or different, and they operate on different levels, be it Germany, which we have worked a lot on, or European level or the world. So this is indicated by the colors of the bars. So we have worked a lot in Germany in the past, and the two things we want to bring to this project are rather new comparably. So we have the industry model and the European level. We have some sectors worked on for several years, but some of them since maybe 2 years only. And we have the global steel model, which is comparably very new. So we have just recently developed it, and it is now for the first time applied currently in the industry aspects project. So those models, we typically then combine and select them according to the targeted industrial subsectors and to the research questions and to the coverage. So what it does, broadly speaking, before going into the details of the two sub-models, so to say, the EDM is a tool. It helps us to analyze possible future industrial production systems and also to explore consistent pathways, how we get there. So it's a technological detailed bottom-up modeling tool. And the main objective typically is not to find some kind of optimal pathway, but it's more a tool that helps us to develop pathways that achieve a specific target, for example, net zero, and which are plausible in a broad range of viewpoints, so to say. So we take all kind of different data from existing roadmaps and scenarios, for example, on demand, to government targets, databases on all kind of stuff, technologies, for example, scientific literature, industry media, and so on. In particular, often we exchange with stakeholders from the industry, and we put this information in the EDM, often in a soft way, and the work with the model itself also depends on the different modules we choose. So I will talk on that later. And the main outcomes typically are CO2 in terms of emissions, and also in terms of stored or used CO2, and the energy demand and the feedstock use. We can also do some post-analysis on costs, on investments costs typically, or on relocation effects in the industry. How does it kind of shift its locations within Europe, for example? So typical research questions are, which technologies do we need for CO2 emission reduction targets in 2050? When do we need to phase them in to keep it in a typical reinvestment cycles? What energy do we need when and where? For example, which amount of hydrogen do we need in Duisburg when? And what do future production networks look like technologically and geographically? So can there also be some kind of redistribution of the production assets within Europe, for example? Okay, a few words then also on a global steel model. The basic structure here is that we start, which you can see on the left-hand side in the blue boxes, from existing scenarios and roadmaps for particular regions in the world. So this is on two things: the steel demand in a, so to say, in a business as usual projections, and also existing roadmaps on how to reach net zero for steel in China or India or whatever, for example. And then we kind of bring them all together on a global level. We use technical data that we have ourselves on TRLs, on energy demands, on iron ore requirements for the different technologies. And then we kind of combine them to an integrated picture. We can then apply some variations of that regarding material efficiency. So there are different scenarios behind whether material efficiency is used to decrease the demand for steel. And then we can also apply variations. In particular, we intend to do it currently with regards to trade of DRI as a new intermediate product in the steel value chain. And then we can apply some rule-based, some rules and see or make some scenarios on how the global steel production could change if we apply this DRI trade as a new mechanism. So this is specific about this model. So we have steel kind of divided into iron production and steel production, which allows them to apply this trade of DRI. The model has 11 regions represented explicitly and one rest of the world. So EU27 is one of the regions, and those chosen 11 regions together cover 92% of today's global steel production. So quite a good coverage, we think. We have differentiated 21 technologies here for iron and steel making, 14 for the primary steel, 3 which are only for DRI production, which is produced for export, 2 technologies how you can then produce steel from the imported iron, and 2 for secondary steel making. This is a view on the different technologies and how they operate and work together. So I won't go into the details here, but there's 3 stages of production, so to say, preparation, which is making the coke, for example, the iron making, and on the right-hand side, it's the steel making. And the important thing here is maybe the system boundary or the model boundary, where we have decided to stop at the level of crude steel. So we don't include the rolling here, for example, in this steel model. But what we do include are the industrial power plants, so electricity produced by the off gases. You can see that in the left-hand column on the preparation. So that's part within the model boundary. Also here, quick view on the outputs. This is probably what you would expect. So final energy consumption, technology assets, how they shift over time, greenhouse gas emissions. You can also say something about scrap and material consumption, also about investment and production costs. That's something that's currently under development. And also here, we haven't yet made any specific links or explicit links to the SDGs. But I think we can think about it. So that's it from my side. Yeah, thanks for the attention. And if you have some questions, of course, happy to answer.